a lot of people have recognized that maybe is the one thing that the bipartisan thing that can get done this year. And so
right, and genuinely bipartisan, not bipartisan in the sense that there are 49 Republicans plus Joe Manchin.
Right, which we're seeing a lot of.
Right. Welcome to Reporter's Notebook, where we talk to the Washington Examiner's top journalists about the stories breaking on their beats. I'm Jim Antle, and I'm joined today by energy and environment reporter Jeremy Beaman. Jeremy, the Democrats' climate legislation passed last year is on the House Republican majority's chopping block. Mm-hmm. Walk us a little bit through what's going on and where this is headed.
So we know no House or Senate Republicans voted for the climate bill,
right.
The Inflation Reduction Act.
Right.
But now that the debt ceiling negotiations have rolled around, House Republicans are sort of using that legislation as an opposition to that legislation as leverage, really, to cut government spending, which is a priority of the Freedom Caucus,
right.
and the conference more broadly, but especially the Freedom Caucus. And so, what Republicans have done is basically passed a bill that would gut most of the tax credits, new tax credits and amended tax credits for clean energy and related technologies that Democrats passed last year. Now, it's an interesting political situation because, of course, Republicans support a lot of these technologies, or the technologies that these credits sort of support.
Right.
The incentives that go toward these technologies, nuclear
right.
energy, for example, biofuels, whatever else.
Mm-hmm.
But again, this is sort of Republicans opening salvo on negotiations, and they just sort of swiped all of it away.
Right.
In reality, Schumer has said this is not going to happen. This stuff is not going to advance, and I think Republicans know that, and many of them are probably glad that these things aren't going to be pulled away, because a lot of new business is coming to their states because of these tax credits.
Right, but it's sort of an opening bid mm-hmm. in what the Republicans hope will be a negotiating process. What the Democrats are still saying is no talks, we want a clean debt ceiling extension. But the likelihood is that at least some of this is going to have to be on the table, no?
You would think so. So Republicans have already sort of negotiated with themselves on this. So mm-hmm. when leadership rolled this bill out, it was basically covering everything that was included in the Inflation Reduction Act, including biofuels elements. And of course, biofuels are a big deal in the Midwest, especially in Iowa. And the Iowa delegation was able to change a bill that McCarthy said wasn't changeable.
Right.
And they became firm no's as soon as as soon as they saw this text. And so they were able to, again, get this bill opened back up and get those things saved, really, save them from being repealed, rather. They've already, the proposal's already been amended, and mm-hmm. so I'm sure we're not gonna see these things necessarily go away when the Senate get their hands on it.
So where are we at permitting reform? And Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer basically said that the Republicans' proposal was dead on arrival, wasn't interested in pursuing those. Senator Joe Manchin, key vote for the Inflation Reduction Act, mm-hmm. wants permitting reform. Where are things right now?
This is a key environmental issue, energy issue that was carried over from the last Congress. So mm-hmm. the IRA was passed. It still takes forever to build things. So if we're going to pass all this money, this sort of argument goes, if we're going to spend all this money, we got to speed things up so the money's not wasted, so things can actually get built. Things mm-hmm. can be reviewed through federal environmental processes and so forth.
Right.
And so Manchin proposed a bill that would have basically supported all kinds of energy sources, including oil and gas, pipelines and so forth. And that got quite a bit of Democratic support in the Senate. A lot of Republicans voted against it. Mm-hmm. Some because they didn't think it went far enough, but there were other political reasons at play. But in general, Republicans really support this notion of speeding things up, especially oil and gas pipelines. So that bill failed. But now talks have kind of resumed. EPW in the Senate, Environment and Public Works Committee, have just held their first hearing on this. Support from Chairman Tom Carper, Democrat from Delaware. Shelley Moore Capito, ranking member, she introduced a bill last Congress on permitting reform. So the ball is getting rolling, but again, there's going to be holdouts, especially among the liberals in the Senate, Ed Markey's of the world, Jeff Merkley,
right.
Senator Bernie Sanders, who voted against Manchin's bill because it included these pro-fossil fuel provisions, and that is not something they're going to want to budge very much on. It's something that the Biden administration has sort of accepted as either they conceded to Manchin or have accepted as part of their sort of shift in some ways on energy policy that we need more fossil fuel energy to keep prices low.
Sure.
They've accepted that in some ways, the administration, but liberal Democrats in the Senate, not so much.
Wasn't the part of the deal for the Inflation Reduction Act, at least on Manchin's end, that there would be some kind of vote on permitting reform?
There was a vote on permitting reform.
Right.
Who knows? I mean, I don't know if Manchin and Schumer are still feel bound by that agreement.
Right.
But even if they're not, there's a pretty widespread support for this notion of permitting, reforming some of these laws, and so at least Manchin, and so to the extent that he still wants this priority to be pushed and to be advanced, he has a lot of people on both sides of him, really, who want to see something, the amorphous permitting reform, as it is called. That means different things to different people, but there's quite a bit of support for that sort of general policy push. And so a lot of people have recognized that maybe is the one thing the bipartisan thing that can get done this year. And so.
Right, and genuinely bipartisan, not bipartisan in the sense that there are 49 Republicans plus Joe Manchin.
Right, which we're seeing a lot of.
Right.
You'd think, yeah, if that's
especially on environmental issues.
Yeah, and there's been a lot of GOP plus Manchin and a few others. So, if that's your standard, there's been quite a bit of bipartisan action over in the Senate.
Right. Well, we'll have to see what happens, weather permitting.
Okay.
Thank you, Jeremy.
Thanks.
You can read Jeremy and subscribe to our Daily on Energy newsletter at washingtonexaminer.com.